I have a rather simple theory. Every time someone tries to imagine the future, that person ends up talking more about their present than anything else. And I started noticing this because of something very specific. When I was younger, I watched a lot of movies set in the future, and that future, curiously, has almost always already passed. Like this, Back to the Future Part 2 takes place in 2015, Blade Runner takes place in 2019, several other films place the future in 2000, 2020, 2030, and now we've already passed several of those dates, and there are no flying cars, no humanoid robots walking down the street, no pill food, and definitely not that whole silvery aesthetic they swore we'd be using. So today, I want to look at some of these old predictions that went very wrong, but not just to laugh at them, because if you look closely, these mistakes say much more about how people thought in the past than about the future itself. Perhaps the most classic prediction of all: in the future, cars will fly. This appears everywhere. Drawings, movies, old magazines. It was practically a consensus. It seemed logical, right? We went from horse-drawn carriages to cars, from cars to airplanes. So the next natural step would be a flying car. But there's a small problem there. Not everything that is technically possible is viable in real life, because a flying car isn't just a car with wings. It needs to be safe, cheap, easy to drive, regulated, and above all, functional in a world where millions of people drive poorly on the ground. Now imagine that in the air. So what happened was curious. We didn't arrive at the flying car, but we did arrive at Uber, GPS, Waze, and the electric car. In other words, the future came, but not in the way they imagined. 2. Food in a pill. Another very common prediction was, in the future, nobody will cook anymore. Everything will be optimized. You take a pill and that's it. All the nutrients solved. This makes a lot of sense if you think about the context. 20th century, industrial growth, fascination with efficiency. Everything needed to be faster, more compact, more rational. They just forgot one detail. Food is not just nutrition. Food is culture, pleasure, routine, memory, encounter. Nobody wants to replace a Sunday lunch with a capsule. So instead, what do we have today? Delivery, gourmet food, specialty coffee, air fryer. We didn't simplify food, we sophisticated it. 3. Humanoid domestic robots. This one's great. For decades, the future had a very clear image: a robot inside your house, walking, talking, helping, cooking, like a butler. But then you look at reality today, and the most common robot is a round vacuum cleaner that stays attached to the carpet. And again, they weren't completely wrong. Automation arrived, but it didn't come in the form of a humanoid robot walking around the house. It came invisibly, in the algorithm that recommends what you see, in the voice assistant, in the system that organizes your work, in artificial intelligence. The robot didn't become a person, it became a system. 4. Futuristic clothes. If you look at any old image of the future, there's a pattern. Everything is metallic, silvery, geometric, kind of spacey. It was as if in the future, everyone would automatically become an extra in a science fiction movie. But the reality was completely different. People continue to wear comfortable, simple, repeated clothes. In fact, if there's a strong trend today, it's exactly the opposite: basic, minimalist, comfortable clothing. This shows something interesting. The future is not a complete rupture, it's a somewhat messy continuation of the present. 5. More technology means more free time. And perhaps the biggest wrong prediction of all is this: the idea that technology would make us work less. This appears very strongly, especially in the 20th century. The logic was simple. More efficient machines equals less human work equals more free time. But something else happened. Machines became more efficient, but the demands also increased. Today, you resolve things much faster, but there's much more to resolve. Work didn't disappear, It multiplied, digitized, and spread. So this is perhaps the most frustrating prediction. Technology has advanced a lot, but free time hasn't kept up. And in the end, all these wrong predictions have one thing in common. They weren't trying to predict the future. They were taking the present and exaggerating it. If the airplane was impressive, everything would fly. If the industry was efficient, everything would be optimized. If the robots existed, everything would be automated with visible robots. But the future doesn't work that way, because the future doesn't depend only on technology. It depends on culture, economy, behavior, fear, desire, and especially on how people use what is created. That's why predicting the future is so difficult, and that's why